Okay, so the word is please do not tell secret password to anyone. Here you have to remember one thing, that here host A consists of 7 layers and host B consists of 7 layers, and these are located in 2 different locations. Here in the application layer, whatever the data that is to be sent to the host B, so that data is transferred from application layer to presentation layer, then to session, then to transport. Like that, in host A, the data is started from the application layer. So remember that very, very carefully. Okay. The data transmission in the host A takes place from the application layer, and it gradually reaches to the lower layer, physical layer, and then it travels through the physical medium for actual communication, and then it reaches the host B. And in host B, here the transformation of the data takes place from lower layer, and finally it reaches the application layer in the host B. Okay, so in host A, the transmission of data is from the higher layer to the lower layer, and in the host B, that is in the receiver side, the data transmission takes place from the lower side to the higher side, upper layer. So remember that one very carefully. Okay, so in yesterday's class, we had discussed about the application layer, the presentation layer, the session layer, and the transport layer. So in today's class also, we will just go through once again. So in application layer is the topmost layer. In the application layer, it consists of protocols. So protocols for web surfing like HTTP or HTTPS, for protocols for email like SMTP, and protocols for file transferring and messaging, file transfer access and management, FTAM. Okay, next protocol like telnet for network virtual terminals. So application layer consists of protocols to perform the computer applications. Computer applications are nothing but the applications that uses the internet. Okay, next presentation layer. In the presentation layer, whatever the data that is received from the application layer, here the presentation layer converts that into another form. It translates the data received from the application layer into machine understanding bit format. Okay, so that is known as translation. After translating the data, it compresses the data. The compression of data is for speed upping the transmission of the data. And the last function of the presentation layer is data encryption and decryption. So in order to provide security to the data. Okay, so these are the 3 functions performed by the presentation layer. Next thing is session layer. The session layer purpose is to establish a connection, to maintain the connection, and to terminate the connection between the 2 devices. Okay, so here these are the functions of the session layer: establishment, maintaining, and ending a session. Next one is dialog control. So the transmission between the receiver and the sender should be either in simplex or half duplex or duplex, in which form that is decided by this session layer. Likewise, dialog separation, that is creating checkpoints to transmit error-free data. That is known as dialog separation. So these are the functions performed by the session layer. Next, transport layer. So transport layer received data from the session layer. Here, the data in the transport layer is in the form of segments. We have to remember that one. The data in the transport layer is in the form of segments. The data is divided into small parts. So those small parts in transport layer are called segments. So that is the first function of the transport layer: segmentation of message into packets and reassembly of packets into messages. Okay, so this is the one of the function of the transport layer. Next, again, connection management. There are two types of connections. First one, connection oriented. Next one, connection less. Connection oriented services means when the sender sends information to the receiver has to send acknowledgement after receiving the information. Connection less service means there is no need to give acknowledgement by the receiver. Connection oriented services, since they are giving the acknowledgement, they are reliable. Whereas connectionless services doesn't give the acknowledgement, so they are not as much reliable as connection oriented, but connectionless services are very fast when compared to connection oriented services. Next, flow control. We had discussed about flow control. Flow control means the speed of data transmission between the receiver and sender should be synchronized. They must maintain the same speed. If sender sends the data quickly and the receiver is slowly receiving it, then there will be a lot of problem. There will be loss of data. So at that situation, the receiver sends feedback to the sender to slow down its process. Okay. So that is about flow control. Error control means in order to get error-free data, some redundancy check methods are there in order to get error-free data. So up to these 4 points we had discussed in yesterday's class. Now we will move to the next layer, that is, what is the next layer? Network layer. The third layer of the OSI model is the network layer. This layer is responsible for the source to destination delivery packet across multiple networks. If two systems are connected to same network, then there is no need for the network layer. Okay, so here, when the host A and host B are located in the same network, then there is no need for the network layer. The network layer is needed when the different hosts are located in different networks. In that situation only network layer is used. Okay, so since the two hosts are located in two different networks, in this layer, routers are used. Routers are used in this layer. Next, one thing here, the data is received to the network layer from the transport layer. Okay, so in the transport layer, the data is in the form of segments. When those segments reaches the network layer, here the network layer converts those segments into packets. Okay, so remember, in transport layer, the data is in the form of segments, and in the network layer, the data is in the form of packets. Okay, next, we will see what are the functions of the network layer. The first function of the network layer is logical addressing. These are the very three important functions performed by the network layer: logical addressing, routing, and path determination. So first we will see logical addressing. So I will explain it by a diagram. Okay. So this is the network layer, and logical addressing is the function performed by this network layer. So look at here. This is the sender and this is the receiver. Okay. So for every computer in a network has a unique IP address. మీ అందరికీ తెలిసే ఉంటుంది IP అడ్రస్ అంటే ఏంటో. internet protocol number. Sorry, internet protocol address. So this internet protocol address is nothing but a binary number, and that binary number consists of four groups of numbers, four groups, and each group is separated by a dot. For example, 125 point, 125 point, 123 point, like that. So four groups, and each group is divided by a dot. And each host in a computer network has a unique IP address. So the purpose of this IP address is it provides a header. So in that header, there is a control field where the sender's IP address and the receiver's IP address are included. Okay, so what is the purpose of including the senders and the receivers IP addresses in order to correctly send the message to the correct receiver? That is the purpose of this IP address. So once again, look at the diagram. So from the transport layer, we are getting the data in the form of segments. In the form of segments, it reaches the network layer. Okay, network layer is used where the two hosts are located in two different networks. So IP1, here the sender is in the network 1 and the receiver is in the network 2. Since the hosts are in two different networks, here we are using routers. Okay, so here the sender is having one unique IP address IP1 and the receiver is having another unique IP address, that is IP2. Now here the logical addressing means assigning IP address to the segment. So what is the segment? The segment is nothing but the data that is received from the transport layer. The data from the transport layer is reached to the network layer in the form of segment. So if IP address of the sender IP1 and address of the receiver IP2 is attached to this segment, then this whole thing forms a packet. Okay, the data segment along with the IP addresses of the sender and receiver is called a packet. So here in network layer, the data is in the form of packets, and the process of assigning IP addresses of the sender and receiver to the segment is known as logical addressing. Okay, so the process of assigning IP addresses of the sender and receiver to the data segment is known as logical addressing. So what is the purpose of assigning IP addresses? In order to ensure that each data packet can reach the correct destination. Okay, so this is about logical addressing. So this is about logical addressing, the first function of the network layer. Then second function of the network layer is routing. So what is meant by routing? Routing is nothing but it is a method of moving data packets from source to destination. Moving of data packets from source to destination, and it is based on the logical addressing format. It is based on the logical addressing format. Again, I will explain you this by another diagram. Okay, so this is routing. So this routing function is the second function performed by the network layer. So listen carefully. So here also there is the sender. The sender is connected to the network 1 and the receiver is connected to the network 2. Okay, so here the IP address. So a unique IP address for every host in the network. So here the IP address is 123.123.123.1 for this sender. Sender or simply computer A. Okay. So look at here, 1, 2, 3. This is one group. Again, 1, 2, 3, second group, 1, 2, 3, third group, and 1 is the fourth group. So here there are 4 groups of numbers and each is divided by a dot. Okay, so this is the IP address of the sender. And look at here, this is the receiver. Here the receiver is nothing but computer B. It is connected to the network 2. So it is having another IP address 123.123.123.2. And in between the network and network 2, there is Facebook server. So this Facebook server is also having a unique IP address that is 123.123.123.3. Okay, so these group of numbers, the first group started from the numbers, any number between 0 to 255, and the second group starts from the numbers 1 to 255. Okay, so here there is a sender, there is a Facebook server, and there is a receiver, and each of them having individual IP addresses. Okay, now for example, if the computer B, that is the receiver, wants to access facebook.com. For example, if the computer B want to access facebook.com, then it sends a request to the Facebook server. Okay, then it sends a request to the Facebook server. So here the Facebook server sends the reply in the form of a packet. Here packet because this is a network layer. So here the packet is nothing but the data. This data consists of the IP addresses of the sender and receiver. So here the sender is the Facebook server and the receiver is the computer B. Okay, so look at here. Since this is a packet, here this packet consists of the IP address of the sender. So what is the IP address of the sender here? Here the sender is the Facebook server. So what is the IP address? 123.123.123.3. So sender's IP address as well as the receiver's IP address. So receiver here is this one. So its IP address is this one. 123.123.123.2. Okay, so here the Facebook server sends the reply to the computer B through a packet which consists of the IP addresses of both the Facebook server as well as the receiver. Okay, so here we uses another one that is known as masking, IP address plus masking. So masking means here the first 3 groups in this IP address informs that the network 2, the data has moved to network 2. The first 3 groups indicate that the data has to move to network 2. And here the last group indicates that the data has to be transmitted to the receiver, that is computer B. So here, basing on the IP address plus masking, the data is received from the Facebook server to the receiver. The transmission of the packets from the source to receiver is known as routing. Clear? The transmission of data from the source to the receiver is known as routing, and it is based upon the IP addresses plus masking. Okay, so this is the second function performed by the network layer. Next, third one. Third one is path determination. So path determination is the another function performed by this network layer. Again, we will see another diagram. Okay, so this is path determination, that is the third function in the network layer. So on the left side, there is a server, and the right side, there is a computer. Okay, so there are different paths. So from starting here, we can reach the computer through this path, or we can move from this path to this path, or we can move from this path to this path. So in whatever route we want, in whatever path we want, we can reach the destination, but choosing the best possible path for data delivery. Choosing the best possible path for data delivery from the source to the destination is called path determination. There are so many paths, but deciding which path is suitable. So that is known as path determination. There are so many protocols in the network layer for this path determination. For example, OSPF. OSPF means Open Shortest Path Protocol, Open Shortest Path First Protocol, and next one, BGP, Broader Gateway Path Protocol. Next, ISIS, Intermediate System Protocols. These are the three types of protocols that are used in network layer for path determination. Once again, I'm repeating, path determination is choosing the best possible path for data delivery from source to the destination. The three protocols used in network layer for path determination are OSPF, Open Shortest Possible Path First, and second one, BGP, Broader Gateway Path Protocol, and third one, ISIS, Intermediate System Protocol. So these are the functions performed by the network layer. So logical addressing means adding IP addresses of the source, sender and receiver to the segment. Then it becomes a packet. And then routing. Routing is the method of transmission of packets from source to the destination by means of IP address plus masking and path determination, choosing the best way for the data delivery. So these are the functions performed by the network layer. So in the transport layer, the data is in the form of segments. In the network layer, the data is in the form of packets. Next, we will move to the next layer. That is data link layer. So the data link layer is the second layer of the OSI model. It is responsible for node to node delivery of data. Okay, so here the data which is received in the form of packets from the network layer are converted to frames. In the data link layer, the data is in the form of frames. Once again, I am repeating, in transport layer, the data is in the form of segments. In network layer, it is in the form of packets. And in the data link layer, it is in the form of frames. Okay, so this data link layer consists of two sub-layers. Again, it is classified into two layers, logical link layer and medium access control layer. Medium access control layer, simply MAC layer, MAC layer. So we will see what are the functions of this data link layer. First one is access the media. Access the media, it is known as framing. Next, media access control. So not only accessing the media, but also controlling the media access by error detection. So these are the two functions performed by the data link layer. So first of all, what is meant by accessing the media? Accessing the media means this data link layer allows the upper layer of the OSI model. Okay, so here whatever the data that is obtained in data link layer, that data is transferred to the upper layers. Okay, generally the data is transferred from upper layer to the lower layer in the host A. But here the function of this data link layer is it gives access to the data to move to the upper layers also. Okay, so that is a very, very unique and important function of this data link layer, which is called as framing. Okay, so before going to that framing, there is one more important thing here, that is physical addressing. In network layer, there is logical addressing. Logical addressing means adding IP address to the segment. But in the data link layer, there is physical addressing. So this physical addressing is used to convert the packets into frames. Okay, so logical addressing means adding IP addresses to the segment to form a packet, whereas physical addressing means adding MAC addresses to the packets to convert them into frames. Okay, so I will explain it by diagram. So this is the first function, that is physical addressing. So how the packet in network layer is converted to frame, that is known as physical addressing. Look at here. So this is one computer, that is host A, and this is host B. So host A is having IP address IP1 and host B is having IP address IP2, for example. So from the network layer, we get a packet, data packet. So the data packet is nothing but combination of the segment. So this segment is received from the transport layer. So to that segment, if the IP address of the sender and the receiver are attached, then it becomes a packet, data packet. So this data packet is formed in the network layer. Now, when this comes to the data link layer, here I had already told you there are two layers in the data link layer. First one, logic link layer, and another one is medium access control layer. Like IP address, every computer is having a unique MAC address in the data link layer. Okay, so here for the host A, for this computer, the MAC one is this number. So this is a 12-digit alphanumeric number. Similarly, for host B is for host B is also having a unique MAC number. So this MAC number is a 12-digit alphanumeric number. So here again a header is attached to this packet, that is MAC1 and MAC2, and again some tail is also attached to the data packet. Okay, so for data packet, MAC1, MAC2 addresses of the sender and receiver MAC addresses, as well as trailer is attached to this data packet. Then this whole things becomes a frame. Okay, so this is known as physical addressing. It is also one of the functions performed by the data link layer. Okay, so here these are frames, and the data link layer is actually a software. Data link layer is nothing but a software, and that software is embedded inside a network interface card. Where it is embedded? It is embedded inside a network interface card by the computer manufacturer. So it is embedded in a network interface card, and it is placed inside a computer by the computer manufacturer for transferring of data from one computer to another computer through the local media. Okay, in order to transfer the data from one computer to another computer through local media, here media comes into existence. That media may be either a copper wire, or it may be an optical fiber, or it may be air, air. It may be air. Okay, so this is known as physical addressing. Here you have to remember that the data packet received from the network layer is converted into frame by adding the MAC addresses of the sender and the receiver along with a trailer. So it becomes a data frame. So here, these data frame, everything is in the form of bits. Okay, so these bits are traveled through the local media, either it is a copper cable or optical fiber or air. Okay. Next, we will see the another function of the network layer, that is access the media. Access the media, it is also called as framing. We will see framing. Sorry for the delay. So this is framing. Once again, I'm repeating, framing means access the media. Access the media means the data transferring takes place not only from the upper layer to the lower layer, from the data link layer, again, the data can be reached to the above layers. Above layers means what is the above layer? Above the data link layer, network layer. And again, it reaches to the application layer also. Because in only the application layer, the reader, the receiver can visualize what the reply he wants. Okay, so here this function is performed by the data link layer through the framing technique. So look at here. For example, if the sender, that is the left one, sender wants to send a message hi, and the receiver located in the network 2 to view that message. Okay, so what is the different process that is taking place here, and how the data link gives access to the upper layers, that is framing. ఓకే, ఇంకోసారి చెప్తాను చూడండి. జనరల్గా మనకి హోస్ట్ ఏలో డేటా ట్రాన్స్ఫరింగ్ అనేది అప్లికేషన్ లేయర్ నుంచి ప్రెజెంటేషన్ లేయర్కి, ప్రెజెంటేషన్ లేయర్ నుంచి సెషన్ లేయర్కి, సెషన్ లేయర్ నుంచి ట్రాన్స్పోర్ట్ లేయర్కి, అలాగా అప్పర్ లేయర్ నుంచి లోయర్ లేయర్కి మనకి డేటా ట్రాన్స్ఫర్ అవుతుంది. కానీ ఈ డేటా లింక్ లేయర్ ఏం చేస్తుంది అని అంటే, మనకి రిసీవర్ సైడ్ ఉన్నటువంటి సిస్టము ఒక మెసేజ్ని చూడాలి అని అంటే అది అప్లికేషన్ లేయర్కి యాక్సెస్ ఇవ్వాలి. ఎందుకంటే త్రూ అప్లికేషన్ లేయర్ ఓన్లీ ద డేటా విల్ బి విజిబుల్ టు ద రిసీవర్. సో అది అప్పర్ లేయర్స్కి ఎలా యాక్సెస్ ఇస్తుంది అని చెప్పేదే ఫ్రేమింగ్. ఓకే, సో హియర్ అట్ ద సెండర్ సైడ్, the sender is nothing but a desktop computer, for example here. So that desktop computer is connected to network 1 through an Ethernet cable. Okay, so through an Ethernet cable. Next, here on the right side, there is the receiver. The receiver is nothing but a laptop. Here the laptop is connected to the network 2 by means of some connectionless service. Okay, some connectionless service, that is internet or something. So there is the router 1 at network 1 and router 2 at network 2, and this router 1 and router 2 are connecting by means of some satellite link. Okay, so why I am saying, because what I am saying here is, here we are using different types of devices as hosts. One is desktop, one is laptop, and one network is connection oriented network, and another one is connection less network. And here we are using an Ethernet, here we are using an internet, and in between we are using a satellite link. So it is an open systems interconnection. There are different software configurations, there are different hardware configurations, but how the data is transmitted from the sender to the receiver without any interruption. Okay, so here this sender is connected to the router 1 by means of an Ethernet cable. So it sends the message, for example, hi. This hi message is to be viewed by this laptop. So for that, what it does, IP packet. So for IP packet, a header is attached. Then it becomes a frame. Header and a trailer are connected to this IP packet. So it encapsulates the IP packet with header and a trailer in order to form a frame. So this frame from the desktop computer reaches the router 1. So here the router is R1. So this router, ఈ router ఏం చేస్తుంది అంటే ఈ వచ్చినటువంటి ఫ్రేమ్ ని డీక్యాప్సులేట్ చేస్తుంది. So it decapsulates it into IP packet, and again it adds a header and a trailer. Because here the header and trailer are changing, because now here the sender is the router and the receiver is the router R2. So whenever it changes from one device to another device, here the sender and receiver are changing. So that's why here the header and the trailers also changes. Okay, so now this is the frame. Now this frame travels through the satellite link and it reaches the router 3. Okay, so at router 3, again here what happens, it decapsulates the IP packet, and again it adds headers and trailers to this IP packet. Why? Because now here the sender is router R3 and the receiver is the laptop. So here H3 IP packet and T3. Now this reaches to the laptop. So here the laptop decapsulates it into IP packet. Okay, so once again I am repeating. First there is a desktop. So from desktop to router 1, it is connected to an Ethernet cable. So here the IP packet, for the IP packet, the sender is this desktop and the receiver is the router R1. So header and trailer are encapsulated to it, and it sends that frame to the router R1. So the router R1, after receiving that frame, here the sender is now router R1 and the receiver is R2. So here it again encapsulates it into H2, T2. Header and trailer are connected. So likewise, here the new headers and trailers are encapsulated to the frames. Finally, it reaches the laptop. Okay. So, okay, ఇక్కడ వరకు బాగానే ఉంది. నెక్స్ట్ మనం ఏం చెప్పాము, here the data link layer gives access to the upper layers. So finally, when the data arrives to the laptop, it is decapsulated and it is forwarded to the network layer. Okay, so it is decapsulated and simply it becomes an IP packet. Now this IP packet is now forwarded to the network layer. Network layer ante enti, data link layer ki pine undetvanti layer. So here this IP packet is forwarded to the network layer. After that, it reaches the application layer. Okay, after the network layer, it reaches the application layer via the session layer, the presentation layer, it reaches the application layer. In the application layer protocols make the received data visible on the computer screen in the laptop. So through that application layer, the message hi will be displayed on the laptop screen. Okay, so network layer or higher level layers are able to transfer data over the media with the help of data link layer. So that is the function of the data link layer. It means data link layer provides access to the media of higher levels of the OSI model. Hope you understand. Next, we will move to the second function.
typing.
Okay, sorry, that screen is not available. Okay, next one is media access control. So media access control means it is another important function of data link layer. So here the purpose of this one is there may be number of devices connected to a common media. Okay, so more number of devices, when more number of devices are connected to the common media, then when more than one device started sending information, sending data to the receiver, there may be possibility of collision of two messages. Okay, because they are sharing the same media and there are so many number of computers. When each computer starts sending messages, then there is a chance of overlapping of those messages, which results in a useless message. So in order to avoid that, here the data link layer keeps an eye when the shared meter is free. So then it gives the information to the computers to send the data. Okay, so it is useful when there are so many computers sharing the same media. In order to avoid the overlapping of the messages, data link layer uses this function. So the protocol used here is carrier sense multiple access protocol. Carrier sense multiple access protocol. The function of this protocol is whenever the media is free, then it informs the computers to send the data one by one. Okay, so these are the functions of the data link layer. So next, the last layer, that is the physical layer. Okay, so I will explain it tomorrow. Just we go back to the two layers we discussed today. The network layer. In the network layer, the segmented data that is received from the transport layer is converted to packet by means of attaching logical addressing. Logical addressing is nothing but adding IP addresses of the source and the destination to the segment. Then it becomes a packet. Next, routing. Routing means it is a method of transmitting data from the source to the destination located in two different networks in the form of packets. Next, third one, path determination. Path determination is choosing the best possible path for delivering of data from the source to destination. These are the functions of the network layer. And in data link layer, here the data in the form of packet is converted to frame by adding the source and destination's MAC addresses, medium access control addresses, which is a 12-bit alphanumeric number, which is embedded inside a network interface card inside a computer by a computer manufacturer. Okay, so here in the frame, the data is in the form of bits, and those bits are transmitted through a local medium. Okay, coming to the functions of the data link layer, first it gives access to the upper layers. Okay, generally data is transmitted from upper layer to lower layer, but this data link layer gives access to the upper layers in order to allow the data to be visible at the receiver. Next, that is known as framing. And the next function of the data link layer is medium access control. So medium access control means whenever there are at a time, if two or more devices are sending the messages who are sharing the same media, in order to avoid that overlapping, here one protocol is used, CSMA protocol. So this protocol helps the local media, allows the devices to to know the free time of the local media in order to send data. Okay, so these are the functions of the data link layer. So from the application layer, the data reaches the presentation layer. From presentation layer, it reaches the session layer. From the session layer, it reaches the transport layer in the form of segments. Then it reaches the network layer in the form of packets. Then it reaches the data link layer in the form of frames. Then it reaches the physical layer in the form of bits. Okay, so in the physical layer, what happens, and after that, so physical layer is the last layer in host A. So after that, it transmits through the physical medium and it reaches again the physical layer in host B. From that physical layer, how it transmits to the upper layer in host B, we will see in next class. Okay, thank you.